dying to do that. Sorry, guys. Something in my eyeball.
I'm trying to.
And I was trying not to wink at you. Just thinking,
What does that actually mean?
Yeah. Welcome to Travel Weekly TV, where we go behind the scenes, speaking to the industry's heavyweights. I'm Hoda from the Travel Weekly team, and this is Toni from the Travel Corporation.
Hello, how are you?
Welcome. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
And I'm loving this beautiful suit.
Yes, we're like angel devil here.
Yeah.
Like the bright colours. Not that that means anything.
Yeah, I love it. I love the purple. It's very spring.
Peacocky.
Yeah,
Okay.
that too.
That too.
So tell me, Toni, what is your first travel memory and what really got you into the travel industry?
Yeah, I love this question. It's such a good question. So I've spoken about this a little bit before, but I feel like touring and travel was kind of in my blood. So my dad actually worked for Contiki back in the 60s and 70s. So he was, I think in those days they used to call them like a courier, but a trip manager driver essentially. And so he had all these amazing stories of what it was like to travel Europe. I think he worked for Contiki for 7 years.
Wow.
And so growing up, my brother and I just heard these amazing stories. He used to have like slides. It wasn't even Polaroids. It was like slides. So he'd show us on the weekend this slideshow of like, this is Berlin and this is Checkpoint Charlie and this is what it's like to go into Russia. And just, I was mesmerized. And I remember as a little girl thinking, this is so much more interesting than Cinderella or Snow White. Like, that is what I want to do when I grow up. Like, I want to be like Dad. I want to travel the world. And so I suppose I feel like travel's always been in my blood. We traveled a lot when we were younger as kids. And so therefore, when the opportunity came to move to London, must have been 12 years ago now, and to work on Contiki in the marketing department, I just jumped at the opportunity. I was like, this is meant to be.
This is meant to be.
Yes.
And so what did your dad say?
Yeah, I mean, he's so supportive of it. He loves it. He still wants to know what trips are selling and what changed. I mean, some of the itineraries that we still offer today are very similar to what we offered in the 60s and 70s. So, you know, obviously the product and the brand has evolved so much, but it's nice to be able to have that, you know, conversation and give him the updates and tell him what's happening. And yeah, he loves it. So that's probably, you know, a big part of why I got into the industry. And once you're in, you never leave. As you know.
Never leave.
As you know.
Yeah. If you love travel, you'll always find a way to move around rather
Exactly. Yeah, absolutely.
So tell me, do you have a little slide for your dad as well? Or?
I know it's all different right now. I've got like thousands and thousands of photos, but every time I'm on a trip or I'm in Europe, I'll always jump on a coach and I'll sit in the driver's seat and I'll take a photo and sort of wave to cameras and send it home so he knows. Yeah.
Oh, I love that.
And what we haven't created yet is getting him actually in a coach, like one of the new coaches, because you can imagine they're really different back in the day.
So tell me, with the travel corporations, is there a trend that you've seen post-COVID?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's so many trends and how you unpack the last 12 months and then looking into the next 12 months and what the future of the industry is going to be. I think looking forward to 2024, it's going to be the year of touring. I think, you know, everyone is ready. There's this pent-up demand. So many people are excited to explore the world. I think the way in which they want to explore the world has changed. I think people are looking for a really meaningful experience. You know, they want to go for a lot longer. They want to make sure that they are ticking off all their bucket list items when they're traveling, but also getting into parts of the world that they wouldn't have otherwise thought about pre-pandemic. And I suppose that's the magic of touring as a category. You know, you can spend 1 or 2 nights in Venice and, you know, tick all the bucket list items off and do what you need to do because everybody wants to see the canals. But then touring allows you to spend the next 2 nights in a quaint, local, beautiful little village in Italy and have a hyper-local experience and make sure you're connecting with the local communities, spreading that tourism dollar into parts of the world, or Europe in this instance, where it's needed the most. So I think there's a real role for touring going into 2024. We just did a piece of research. We commissioned a piece of research just to see what the Australian appetite was for touring. And the results came back in our favour. So there's 4.3 million Australians who would consider touring in the next 12 months as a part of their holiday. So it's sort of the perfect thing for agents to add to a cruise, or just to build, a couple of tours sequentially, or just to do that one-off touring experience.
What's something that the Travel Corporation does that makes you so passionate about working there?
Yeah, I think maybe it's a bit of a surprise to some people, but the Travel Corporation is so incredibly passionate and committed to sustainability and making travel matter. And I think that, there's a lot of greenwashing in the industry. You talk about practicing what you preach, and we really do practice what we preach by way of sustainable travel, making sure that we do make travel matter. So we've just released a carbon fund, the first touring company to release a carbon fund or create a carbon fund this year. We've just released our second annual impact report to really make sure that we're holding ourselves accountable for what we say that we would like to do in the industry. We've launched this concept of making travel matter on all of our itineraries. So what that essentially means is making sure that on every trip that you choose to travel across the 5 brands, so Trafalgar, Insight, Costsaver, Contiki and Luxury Gold, my 5 children, can't forget any of them.
Just quickly?
Yeah, that's a real mouthful. But every single itinerary will have, some of them are more progressed than others, but by the end of 23, we'll have one Make Travel Matter experience at least on every itinerary, which means our travellers can either get involved with local communities or wildlife initiatives, or initiatives that are more centred around our planet pillar, and so it's really a way in which we want to make sure that it's accessible for travellers to make travel matter. We don't want to pass on that additional cost to them. There is this perceived value in Australia that anything sustainable is slightly more expensive, like your keep cup's more expensive, sustainable items for your house are more expensive, and that's certainly the case when it comes to travel. So we're really trying to make sure we integrate it onto our product, that the consumer doesn't bear the cost. And it was just a nice way for our consumers and for our agents to be able to be a part of this sustainable movement. We know that travel as an industry probably has a bit of a bad rap. Second to fast fashion, maybe. We're kind of perceived as this vertical, obviously to get off the island, you have to have somewhat of a heavy footprint to fly to Europe. So rather than shying away from, what changes need to be done, we're just making sure that we are participatory in it, doing everything we possibly can, setting up a carbon fund. And I think coming back to your question, that's, it's so close to my heart. It's so close to many of the team who work for TTC Tour Brands. We're so passionate about it. And also, I think one of the really interesting things about looking to the future of the travel is making sure that it's grandchildren proof. I want to make sure that my kids' kids can climb Machu Picchu, can have these amazing experiences in Venice canals. And so it's on all of us really to make sure we're doing our part as an industry, and everyone's coming together and everyone's stepping in, and it's really exciting, but I'm incredibly passionate about it.
So obviously you look after quite a large portfolio. What is your favourite itinerary?
Oh my gosh, I don't know if I could answer that. There's so many of them. I mean, depending on the week or the month, I have a favourite brand. It's usually correlated to sales performance.
Oh, okay.
I think there's some amazing itineraries across all of them. I'd say Luxury Gold is a brand that we've spent a lot of time talking about this year, and we've kind of brought it back to life after the pandemic. There's some amazing itineraries in Japan, particularly. I think there's I'd love to be able to experience the product in Japan and India, some of those more exotic destinations. Yes. Yeah. My favourite itinerary that I've actually done myself, I think, would probably have to be the Galapagos Islands trip that Contiki offers. So I was lucky enough to take a bunch of agents and media. This is going back a few years ago now. But it was just one of those life-changing, eye-opening, oh my gosh, I work and travel, I'm getting paid to do this. And I can't even begin to imagine what customers who are leaving Australia for the first time experience when they actually land in Ecuador and they go to the Galapagos Islands. It's an amazing product.
So tell me, Toni, what's the one thing that you always pack when traveling?
I think my answer would differ, depends on who I'm traveling with. So if I'm traveling with my 3 children, which I do quite often, and I'm lucky enough I took them overseas this year to Europe, like nappies, books, toys, dummies. If I'm packing just for myself, probably snacks, because I don't want to be hungry and just, you know, we spend our lives in planes, all of us in the travel industry, we spend our lives at the airport. Having my own snacks is a really important part of getting through long travel days.
I agree. You can't be hungry traveling.
There's only so many cheese and crackers that you can have in the Qantas lounge.
Absolutely.
And then you just get over it.
Yeah. No,
Sorry, Qantas.
I don't do hangry.
No, I don't do hangry either. Absolutely not.
So tell me, is there some bit of advice that you give to the travel industry?
I mean, I think just book a tour for book your clients on a tour for 2024. I do think that there's a lot that we as a collective, a touring collective, need to talk about in terms of what our category does and what it offers travelers. I mean, I think, you know, the research, 4.3 million people want to travel next year on a tour out of Australia. It's just a beautiful product, you know, whether it's adventure that you're doing, or whether it's Europe or exotic destinations like India. And I think, you know, travel has become complicated, and, you know, particularly for our agent partners, building all the components, finding the right hotels, making sure that you've got experiences included. And I think touring is just that beautiful way of bringing it all together, letting us do the heavy lifting for you and for your clients. You know, we talk about the year that was in Europe. You just couldn't get availability in the Belmont. You couldn't get a Michelin star restaurant for your client if you wanted to.
Get a flight.
You couldn't get a flight. Well, yeah. Let's just say you managed to get a flight, and it wasn't $10,000. You know, we had, you know, obviously pre-contract a lot of our stuff, so a lot of it is already committed. It's there. It's ready for the taking. Probably another thing I'd add to that is do yourself a favor and pick a destination that you wouldn't otherwise think that you want to visit, and do it in a touring capacity, because, you know, you can end up on this, you know, rat race, tourist trap of just walking around Florence being like, where do I need to be? What do I need to see? What should I eat? What should I be looking at?
What do I do now?
Yeah. Once you've seen the footprint. So when you have a touring experience, it's just, you go so many more layers deep in a destination that, you know, travel is so accessible. You can Airbnb, you can, you know, book things independently, but it's a really lonely experience. And, you know, you only scratch the surface of a destination, and you do it with whoever you've traveled with. I think there's a whole world of connections and human interaction that happens when you're doing a tour.
Yeah. So where can travel agents find more information?
Well, I've been watching a couple of these videos, and everyone says, and I think you said it, use and abuse your BDMs.
Yes.
I don't know who coined that term, but I'm going to take it. And I'm sorry to my sales team if you're watching this, but I do think we have an amazing sales team around Australia. We have a fabulous TAP portal, our travel agent portal, which has all 5 of our touring brands on there. So you can find all itineraries for Trafalgar, Insight, Contiki, Costsaver and Luxury Gold in the one place. And I think, you know, this year we're really making it about our agents. We've just launched our Inner Circle, so you can only be part of the Inner Circle if you are in the agent community. We've got some amazing familiars that'll be industry-wide, that'll be launched in the coming days if they haven't already been communicated. And this really exciting initiative, which is Book, Bank, Bon Voyage. We know we've got 5 amazing travel brands, and depending on, you know, who you are and what you want to travel on, we're making sure that you can, for every trip that you sell as part of TTC Tour Brands, you get a credit to book to go on your own trip. So it could be Luxury Gold, it could be Costsaver. If you're 26, it could be Contiki.
Fantastic. I love that initiative. It gives back to the agents, which is fantastic.
100%. Yeah.
Toni, thank you so much for joining us.
So welcome. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. And thank you for watching Travel Weekly TV.